Hi everybody, welcome to video 3 in our Domestic Violence Awareness Month video series. So first, we've talked about the history of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and last week we talked about the power and control wheel. So this week we're going to take things just a step further, and we're going to discuss safety planning. So all too often, safety plans are not really thought of until it's really too late in the relationship. And a safety plan is really meant to be a personalized strategy to remove yourself from a potentially dangerous situation. So regardless of whether you plan to leave your relationship or not, safety planning is really important. And we know this because, as we discussed last week, abusive relationships don't start out as abusive. And instead, the abuse just kind of happens gradually. So when you allow yourself to identify warning signs and then have a plan set in place for that just-in-case scenario, it could potentially save your life. I'm not sure if we've gotten to this yet in our video series, but in case we have, let me just reiterate, the most dangerous time in an abusive relationship is during and after a breakup. During this time, the abusive partner might start to escalate their abusive behaviors and their aggression to try and keep their partner from leaving. So it's important to know that even if somebody has left an abuser, it's not 100% guaranteed that the abuse will end, because unfortunately, an abuser's need for power and control doesn't just magically disappear when the relationship ends. Because of this, safety planning is a necessity. When it comes to safety planning, there really is no one-size-fits-all scenario. So this is something that survivors need to create to really work for them in their lifestyles. I definitely recommend, when it comes to safety planning, identifying people that you trust and making sure that you really just have people in your corner. And I know that this is something that's difficult for survivors to speak to other people about, but it really is important to have other people be your eyes and your ears, and perhaps creating a safe word system with them where if you send them a text that has your safe word in it, they know that you need extra help, and that would be something that is agreed upon between the two of you in the first place. But talking to people about these things really just opens up the conversation so that you can ask for help as necessary, and they can make sure that you know that you're not alone. Not only does involving others in your safety plan help to keep you safer by allowing there to be more eyes and ears on your situation, but it can also help to limit your exposure to an abusive partner and limit their access to you. So when it comes to involving people in your safety plans, what does that look like? Well, you could include advocates, community organizations, family, or people that you talk to and that you trust. Essentially, each plan is really just designed to fit your specific relationship and make sure that when you're leaving that relationship, you're doing so in a safe and healthy way. And additionally, when it comes to safety planning, you can make a safety plan even if you don't have an active plan to leave your relationship. Again, these are really just set in place to make sure that when or if that time comes, you're able to do that and exit that relationship in the safest way possible for you. Additionally, breakup plans can be altered and changed as time goes on. So, you could have a strict set of rules for how you want your safety plan to look at one point in your relationship, and maybe as the relationship goes on, you either want to make them even stricter and you want to add different people to your safety plan, or maybe you want to loosen up your safety planning restrictions. It really just depends on you and how you're feeling and what's going to make you the most safe. Before we get any further into today's discussion, I want to point out the fact that if you're in an abusive relationship, the abuse is not your fault. and you deserve to be in a relationship that makes you feel good, it makes you feel safe. Additionally, asking for help is not a sign of weakness. Actually, it's quite opposite. If you're asking for help and asking for resources to help you get out of your relationship and help you create your safety plan, that shows a lot of strength on your part. You deserve to be in a relationship that feels good. And you should not have to apologize to anybody for trying to make that happen for yourself. Also, I want you to know that you don't need to be in an immediate crisis to start using these resources. And certainly you don't need to be in immediate crisis to start making your safety plan for if that decision comes your way. So just reach out to your support system and reach out to any resources that come your way. And of course, if you need any, let us know, because we'd love to help too. But now we'll get back into the conversation now, but I just wanted to make sure to point out that fact that asking for help, putting other people on your team, and just making sure that you feel safe, that's signs of strength. That's a really beautiful thing that we need to normalize, because it's integral to making sure that, you know, our relationships are safe and that we're upholding our own boundaries and overall just moving forward to a future that's free from violence in everybody's relationships. So another point of safety planning I want to talk about is something that really isn't thought of much at all, and that's social media and our digital life. So if you are making a safety plan, or if you're actively trying to leave your relationship but you fear that it might become a stalking situation, go into the settings of each individual social media sources that you have and make sure that your location and privacy settings are configured the way that you want them and need them to be. And also make sure that you don't post your location or anything else that you wouldn't want your abuser to somehow find out. Because although you might choose to block them on this different social media sources, there might be a mutual friend that you forgot about, or somebody else with an unblocked account that could share your information with them. So that's something to definitely be aware of, is just that, you know, like they say, what we put on social media stays on social media. And of course, when it comes to exiting an unsafe relationship, we really need to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to keep ourselves and potentially any children we might have or anybody else involved safe. If it's safe to do so, documentation can be a huge part of safety planning. If you're experiencing things like stalking or abuse and things like that, document it. Documentation really can be helpful in the legal settings. Like for example, in the instance of if you wanted to get a personal protection order, or creating co-parenting agreements and things like that. And documentation can also be useful in the survivor's ability to ground themselves after the abuse, and realize that it really is not their fault that these things are happening to them in the first place. All right. Now let's talk about some tips for if you are choosing to go ahead and break up with your abusive partner. The first tip I'll share is to identify and lean on your support system. They'll be there for you, and this might include bringing somebody along with you to break up with your partner to make sure that you have bystanders present, or just making sure that, you know, somebody else knows so that they're able to check in on you. And make sure that things are okay. And going along with that is telling others, such as your parents or your friends or other trusted adults that you know, tell them that you're ending your relationship, and especially if you fear that your ex is going to try to confront you afterwards. This can, again, help to make sure that you have people to check up on you and make sure that you're safe. Another really big tip for breaking up with an abusive partner is, if you don't feel safe breaking up with them, don't do it in person. Sometimes the safest thing really is to break up virtually, even if it seems mean. your safety is the number one priority here. So don't risk your safety for somebody else's feelings. If you do choose to break up in person, do it in a public place. Have members of your support system there to wait nearby. Take a phone with you to make sure that you can have that sort of communication. And overall, just, you can never be too safe. Just make sure that you are doing what needs to be done for that sort of worst case scenario. Additionally, something that I feel like everybody needs to know, especially when it comes to breaking up with a partner of any sort, especially an abusive partner, it's completely normal to miss them after breaking up. Even if the partner is abusive, one way to help make it a little bit easier for you is to write down the reasons that you're breaking up with them and keep them for yourself as a reminder later on, and give them to your support system. That way, when those feelings come, as feelings do, you'll be able to say, well, I miss the relationship, but I don't miss when this, or this happened, or I don't like when they treated me this way, or called me this name, or things like that. So again, like I said, feelings are likely to occur regardless of whether or not the relationship was healthy, because you're so comfortable and used to that person just from having the relationship. So there's no shame in that whatsoever. The next part of what I'm going to talk about is especially serious, and that is lethality indicators in abusive relationships. So what I'm going to do for this part is I'm going to read off of a list of different indicators where if these things are present in your relationship, it's probably a good sign that you need to start reaching out for help. And sometimes the safest thing to do is to contact law enforcement or your local domestic violence agency, or your school administrators, or whoever it is that can help make you the safest in these scenarios. So I'll also put this list up as a slide after this little video section as well. So if your partner threatens to kill you, threatens to kill themselves if you leave them, has a gun or a weapon and has ever tried to use it to threaten, scare, or hurt you, if they brag that they have or would kill somebody, if they put their hands around your throat to try and scare you, if they force you to have sex or are sexually abusive, if they won't let you receive medical attention after an injury, if they threaten to hurt somebody that you care about, if they destroy your property, if they harm a pet, if they follow you and show up unexpectedly or constantly demand to know your whereabouts, if they steal from you or withhold money from you, if they interfere with your communication with your family, if they escalate violence and become more and more abusive, if they control your daily activities, if they're extremely jealous and possessive, if they're capable of killing you or excuse the dog, if they're capable of killing you or you feel that they could or would, if they become abusive when they drink or use drugs, or if they have or would elude law enforcement. These are all indicators that there really is a bigger problem at stake, and that we need to make sure that we're doing what we need to and what we can do to make ourselves the most safe in these scenarios. So again, this is where safety planning comes into play, because you don't expect for these things to happen. They just do. And like we talked about, abuse just builds up and builds up and builds up until it's too much. And we want to make sure that if you're in an abusive relationship, you have the resources and the ability to get out of that scenario if that's what you're choosing to do. So lean on your support system and make sure that you're contacting law enforcement or others if need be to keep you safe. All right, So when it comes to breakup or safety planning, you are the number one priority. And I hope that there's a couple of tips at least that you've gotten out of this video so that you are prepared for the what ifs and to keep yourself safe in any situation that might arise. So I hope that this was useful, but I also hope that you're able to take away from it some other ways that you can keep yourself the most safe at home, and that it really opens up that discussion for you. And maybe that is working with your children to have a safe word with them so that they know if you say a certain word to go hide in a specific area, or to grab their go bag and go hop in the car, or whatever you agree upon. But also it might spark for you to think about the different rooms that you're in at home, and make sure that you know where the exits are, or you know if any of the doors lock, whether or not there's multiple exits, whether or not there are any weapons, or if there's anything that you could use to defend yourself. Additionally, maybe you'll start thinking about your abusers, their psychological impact that they have, or perhaps if they have any sort of tells or intimidation tactics that they use, so that you could be aware of that. And then, can you tell when things are about to blow up? So there's a lot to take into consideration when it comes to the safety planning. Again, I really hope that this video at least opened your eyes to the fact that safety planning can be useful whether or not you're actively trying to leave a relationship, or whether or not you feel that your relationship is unhealthy. Again, it's just a worst case scenario. Keep yourself safe. What are you going to do? Because they're not thought about until it's too late, and it's better to be safe than sorry. And again, if you are somebody who is in an abusive relationship, it's not your fault, and we'd love to give you the resources that you need to get into a safer situation, so that you can have a relationship that you deserve, because you are worthy of one. So with that, let us know if you have any questions. Is this something that you've thought about before? Let us know, and then next week we'll be back for another video discussion on Thursday with a topic of love languages. Thank you, everybody.